welcome to Everfree Radio. I am your host, Brushin Bones.
I'm Crescendo.
And I'm Moonlight.
And today we're bringing you our review of the episode Hurricane Fluttershy. So good, another Fluttershy-centric episode. Just what this season needed. We were going a little short.
You sound as if you don't like Fluttershy.
I didn't say I don't like Fluttershy, but she's my least favorite of the main six. Yes, cue everybody saying, how dare you.
How dare you!
Actually, there's a lot of people who don't like Fluttershy.
Fair enough, everyone has their own favorites.
Minus Fluttershy.
Yep. We've received some notice from you, our beloved fans and listeners, that we kind of drag these things out a bit. So we're going to be taking a little bit of a different step here. Instead of going play by play with the episode, we're going to attempt to summarize the episode instead as best we can. We may leave out some of the bigger stuff, but if you want to see all of that, you can just watch the episode. But we will describe the big stuff and we will make sure to detail all of the really important things. So let's go ahead and kick this off. We're starting the episode off with Rainbow Dash sending flyers out to all the Pegasus ponies for a meeting. Fluttershy is not wanting to go to the meeting, but Rainbow Dash makes sure she shows up anyways. Meeting is to get water from the local reservoir up to Canterlot.
Hold the phone. 8-Track here in the editing booth. Did he just say Canterlot? I think he meant Cloudsdale.
And the way that they do that is, how else but flying so fast they make a tornado to get the water up to Canterlot.
Cloudsdale.
Oh, wow. Couldn't they have just built a pipe system?
Oh, there's the possibility that Pegasi could teleport the water up.
Since when did Pegasi teleport things? I think she meant unicorns. Has no one slept last night? Why do I have the feeling this is going to be a long edit?
There must be an easier way, surely. Then again, I just think as part of Pegasi, they seem to be quite show-offy.
I have to wonder, the episode's called Hurricane Fluttershy, but they're making a tornado.
Well, a tornado with water in it, basically a sea tornado, is essentially very similar to a hurricane.
It wouldn't count as a hurricane, though, because it's not. It's a tornado.
Thank you, Data.
I'll shut up now.
Okay, well, we find out that Rainbow Dash not only wants to get the water up to Cloudsdale.
Oh, now it's Cloudsdale.
She wants to smash the wing power record that was set the previous time they needed a water refill up in Cloudsdale, which just so happened to be set by Spitfire and her group of Pegasi. Fluttershy, of course, is acting very, very timid. Let's just say she does her darndest to get out of doing this. And, of course, it fails. She attempts to say that she has ponypox, which I immediately asked myself, oh, Fluttershy, is ponypox anything like pentapox? That's only going to work for a couple of seconds.
I do think it's funny how Rainbow Dash is just easily able to see through all the tricks she tries to pull in trying to avoid doing the hurricane.
She was getting a little bit creative. First, she made sure to make herself all done up to look sick. And then as she's backing away, she falls on her wing in an attempt to make it look like she hurt herself. And Rainbow Dash isn't having any of it.
I'm sure we've all tried this when we had like a presentation or something that we didn't want to do.
Oh, tell me about it.
At least I have.
I do love Fluttershy's little shrug while she's flying in midair. It's like, oh, you got me.
There's a lot of standing flying. When I say standing, I mean like when they've got their bodies positioned like they would if they were like a human. There's a lot of that in this episode. Lots and lots of using the forelegs as if they were arms and wild arm waving as such. And
one thing I noticed with this episode is how they've really improved on the use of the wings as more than just, well, wings. Like, how we see even in one scene where a pony is lifting what looks to be 1,000-pound weight with her wings. Is it 1,000 or 100?
It's kind of weird, though. Wings aren't like that.
Yeah, wings don't really have that level of control. You can exercise a certain amount of control if they were designed more like bat wings, where they're essentially hands with really, really long fingers, really, really long digits. And there was like a leathery membrane between each finger. but these are supposed to be feathered wings, wings that are like a bird's wings, the wings of a Pegasus. And they control them almost as if they're extra arms.
But as Pinkie Pie proves time and time again, physics, who needs them?
Yeah, oh gosh.
Speaking of physics, that muscle pony, how does he fly?
Very carefully.
No, I want to know how he flies.
The good old roid pony, which several people in our little group here have taken to using the Mystery Science Theater names for. Names like Big McLarge Huge. His only, real line in this episode was "Yeah!" But that was kind of enough, I think.
Oh, dig out my ears.
Come on, it wasn't that loud.
So, Fluttershy fails to convince Rainbow Dash that she's unfit, and Rainbow Dash manages to finagle her way into convincing Fluttershy to show up for training, because Rainbow Dash is dead set on making sure that all of her Pegasi are going to break at least 10 wing power. Now, they get to the training, Twilight and Spike are there helping them out with a little windmill device that measures wing power, and Twilight's a nerd and goes into a long scientific explanation of what it is, and nobody cared. So, of course, Spike has to dumb it down for everybody.
The anemometer.
Yes, the anemometer. Oh, gosh.
Just lucky we've got that Spike there for us laymen.
Yeah. Spike, translating exo-speak from science majors like Twilight into layman's terms for, well, as long as he's been alive, I'm guessing. We start off with the training, and everybody is stoked, everybody is pumped, except for Thunderlane, who seems to be kind of the running gag of attempting to fake illness this episode, until he's actually stricken ill, along with 7 other Pegasi, but
8.
More on that later.
Oh yeah, 7.
There's 8 in total, so it's Thunderlane and 7.
Yeah, 8 in total.
I did my math.
Yeah, I know. I can't do the maths. I know.
I believe the disease is called feather flu, is it?
Yes.
How do your feathers catch a flu?
I don't
Maybe
know.
they all fall off.
Maybe it is a flu that makes your feathers fall off. It would be kind of frightening to think of feathers falling off of the ponies, since they kind of fall somewhere in between actual removable feathers, like we see when the Cutie Mark Crusaders pluck one of Scootaloo's, to being almost like fingers when we see Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy in previous episodes using it to grab a book. In this episode, they're using them to do push-ups. It's kind of a scary thought, but yeah.
It might depend on which feathers you get, because the smaller feathers might hurt less or something, because I know the larger ones that Rainbow Dash gets trapped under the rock in May the Best Pet Win, they probably hurt more.
Yeah, I suppose so. We got a lot of background pony names in this episode, and there was actually a lot of speaking from these background characters. Also, lots of derpy time. Lots of derpy time, and of course, how could they not give us lots of derpy time? This is an episode featuring the Pegasi of Ponyville. So, we got a lot of named background ponies now. We've got Flitter, Cloud Chaser, Thunderlane, Blossomforth, which I believe is a blind bag pony, and
She is.
Silver Speed, and Rumble, who is Thunderlane's little brother. Unfortunately, we didn't get a canonical name for the steroid pony, so we'll just stick with Big McLarge Huge. Anyways, moving on from that, lots of training. Rainbow Dash is excited. All of the Pegasi seem to be absolutely pumped for the training, with exception only to Fluttershy, who's got a lot of stage fright, and she's got stage fright for the obvious reasons, because she was made fun of constantly in flight school. We actually get a little bit more of her backstory from flight camp. We get some more screen time with gangly little Philly Fluttershy being shoved off clouds in an attempt to fly, and we got a little chant that is very reminiscent of Weasley is our king, almost. It's very, very school child taunting of the person sort of thing. Fluttershy can hardly fly.
It just seems like one of those things that really cuts deep, especially with poor Fluttershy, who is not very resistant to these kinds of things. And then we see her crying, and that's heartbreaking. Many a brony shed a tear today.
It's pretty heartbreaking. It really, even for someone like me whose least favorite character is Fluttershy, you really do get a good sense of exactly how ashamed she is of herself to be a Pegasus who's so poor at flying and frightened of heights and all this other stuff. It makes it even more emotionally jarring, emotionally striking. It's a real punch. If you're a lot like me and you think that the fanon concept created by one of the fans in a short little comic on DeviantArt, I wish I could remember the artist's name right now. One of the artists in the fandom created a little comic about Fluttershy's dad when he's sending her off to flight camp. And Fluttershy's dad in said comic is a former Wonderbolt who's really, really awesome and really, really boisterous and loud and talkative and very outgoing.
Are you
and he's
sure he's
talking
not Rainbow
about
Dash's father?
how awesome it's going to be when his daughter goes to flight camp and shows everybody how great it is, how awesome she is, because she's got Wonderbolt blood in her veins. And it's...
I wouldn't be surprised if she does.
And all the while she's timid and hiding behind him. So I think that seems almost perfect, and I could totally see that winding up as canon, but it really hits home for you if you're a lot like me and you kind of accept that as a fanon kind of situation in your head and imagine that Fluttershy's got a whole lot of personal issues that center around not being good at flying.
That actually brings up a point that I didn't like about the episode. When she was absolutely determined to fly, she only got 2.3 wing power.
Well, I'm thinking that it might have been exactly for the reason that she said, and that was just that she thought she was pushing away all of the doubts and stuff like that, but in reality, her subconscious was still not really letting her bring out her full potential.
Maybe, because when we've seen her full potential, she's almost on par with Rainbow Dash.
Mm-hmm.
If you're including episode like the two-parter with Discord, where she catches up to Rainbow Dash, attempting to escape on a cloud, and a couple
Among
of other
other
things. Yeah, a couple among the other episodes. It does seem a little bit like discontinuity. If you don't think too hard about it, or you just accept the fact that what she said, the most simple explanation is just the truth, that she might have trained hard, but she was still letting the voices get to her subconsciously, if nothing else.
I will say, though, that while on the topic of Fluttershy being as timid as she is, it's lovely to see Rainbow Dash having a more compassionate side for a change. She really wants this, but at one point she's just willing to say, okay, you don't have to be there if you don't want to Fluttershy. It's nice to see that kind of continuity from, previous episodes where people have been trying to show her not to be that way.
Well, and it's especially great because you actually see Rainbow Dash starting in this episode. You see her starting to get heated about it, and then she literally catches herself.
Suck it up, Fluttershy! This is no time for... I mean, confidence or no confidence. I'm gonna need every Pegasus to break the record, including you!
And, calms herself down and is just like, you gotta have confidence in yourself. And she tries to motivate Fluttershy without being like a bully about it, which you think that in an earlier episode that she would have had no problem bullying Fluttershy into attempting to fly with the hurricane, or just outright saying, no, Fluttershy, you do suck, we don't want you in the hurricane. In addition to that,
I don't think she'd say that.
when it comes down to the whole record thing, because one of her biggest things was she wanted everybody flying as hard as possible for the purpose of breaking Spitfire's old record. But when the hurricane collapses the first time, she literally just says, no, I want to make sure everybody gave it their all. Forget the record. I just want to get the water to Cloudsdale. And that's something that really, to me, it seemed like Rainbow Dash had come a long way. It was showing that she really has developed a lot further from the shallow and competitive bullying Pegasus that she was of the past. And you can't really deny that she was a bit of a bully, or at least highly, highly competitive. Just look at the old episode with the Iron Pony competition with Applejack and some of the other previous episodes before she started getting her character development. And she does have an ego. So the idea that she could set forth to break this record, knowing it was possible, and then not being able to, and then just let it go like that, really shows that she's come a long way.
Mm-hmm. To be honest, this just furthers my favoritism of her.
Yes, we all have our favorite.
Despite all of the training, and Fluttershy, after crying and going off, she trains with her animal friends because, don't you know it, Fluttershy can speak directly to the animals because she knows all their languages.
She can speak squirrel.
Just like Twilight Sparkle in another dimension. Okay, I'll just say it. Just like Tara Strong's other character, Bubbles, Fluttershy can speak squirrel. Makes me wonder if Fluttershy can speak Spanish, too.
So, we do get the bit where all the animals are helping Fluttershy train, and they've got these pony masks to simulate the people looking at Fluttershy to help her get over her self-confidence issues.
Really frightening pony masks because they're really well made and detailed and realistic looking to the point to where you kind of look at them and you're like, that's a little bit odd to look at.
So I wasn't the only one that was creeped out at it?
At first, I honestly did think they were ponies and not the animals.
I was a little bit creeped out about it, but I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to give those gosh darn grimdark writers more material to work with.
This episode also had another creepy part in where Fluttershy was in her imagination, imagining all the eyes around her.
There was a lot of nightmare fuel in this episode, not just the mask, but the whole sequence with spinning heads taunting her and becoming an entire large hallway of eyes that she just was trying to run from. She's got a little bit of trauma. I'm really starting to think that a lot of these ponies need some extensive therapy because they've all got a lot of issues.
All the ponies in this town are crazy!
To be fair though, when you live in a town like Ponyville where this sort of stuff apparently happens weekly, you'd have issues too.
Yeah, apparently. So she trains with her animal friends and their creepy pony masks and is able to improve her earlier wing power of 0.5 to 2.3. And she is, of course, distraught by this at the training and flies off again. Rainbow Dash is sitting there wondering how they could go about boosting her confidence because it's become half about getting the hurricane to work, or, well, tornado funnel to work, and the other half's been about getting Fluttershy to find some strength in herself. So the next day, they start up the tornado to funnel the water, but they're missing 8 people, one of which is Thunderlane. The other 7 are unnamed.
It's not Buff McLargehuge.
Or Big McLargehuge is there.
How does he fly?
He is not aerodynamic at all.
He has hardly any wings.
Maybe he just relies on pure wing strength alone to fly. Because those wings must be pretty damn tough. Sorry, pretty darn tough.
He just muscles his way past physics.
Oh dear.
Oh god.
That one hurt, Bones. That one physically hurt.
Well, with the 8 ponies missing, they realize that they not only might not have enough to break the record, but they may not have enough to even get the 800 the 800 power that they need, the 800 wing power, to successfully funnel the water to Cloudsdale. So Rainbow Dash says, no way, we're not going to stop before we've even begun. Let's get this going. They try it the first time. The tornado falls apart. And of course, here comes Fluttershy. Fluttershy was attempting to come just to give them a kind of, a morale boost and cheer them on from the sidelines. You rock, woohoo! But when she sees that the tornado isn't working, Twilight, who's there with all of her monitoring equipment, and Spike as well, tells her they need you. Your wing power can make all the difference because they're stuck at 795. So they literally need 5 wing power. And Fluttershy's not sure about it because she only was able to clock in at 2.3 yesterday. And Twilight's just like, you gotta believe in yourself. Here's some goggles. Go in there and fly. And Fluttershy's like, okay. And what do you know? They pull it off. So when all is said and done, the water is successfully funneled out to Cloudsdale. Rainbow Dash refers to Fluttershy as her best flyer when we get some more lines from Spitfire saying, hey, you know what? You may not have broken my record, but you got guts.
I will say that Fluttershy should
Looks like
actually
your
be really
skills
proud
saved
of
us
herself.
again.
Because out of all the flyers, she's the one who had, like, the most increase from her original speed to her best speed. That must have been at least 200-300% increase.
Well, considering they were steady at 795, and she managed to get them to cap at 800, which was the necessary breaking point for the water to get to Cloudsdale, that means that she went from 0.5 on her very, very first run to 5, which is an increase of 10 times, which means that it's a 1,000%. That's a 1,000% improvement, which is pretty ridiculous. She really did have the most improvement of probably any of the ponies that were training. So, when all is said and done, Hurricane Fluttershy goes off without a hitch. Right. We've given off most of our points and attempted to shave the episode review down to a bit, which I'm not entirely sure we were successful at. Whatever. Let's go ahead and give our scores. So, Moonlight.
You're gonna start with me, aren't you?
Moonlight.
Yeah,
Hey,
I was right.
It's a Fluttershy episode. You're the Fluttershy lover. We're starting with you.
6 stars. Fluttershy, bias. 6 stars. No, I like the episode. It was really good. I didn't really find any major faults with it, but...
So, number
No, it
value.
was a good episode. I can't really... 5 stars.
5 stars? 5 stars? Okay.
5 stars.
Okay.
Easily one of my favorites.
Crescendo, you're the Rainbow Dash lover. You can go second.
I think this episode was so awesome! I just loved the characterization of Rainbow Dash in this episode. And the adorableness of Fluttershy, the tears were shed, heartbreaking. And we saw Fluttershy as a tree. That cracked me up.
Oh god, we did, didn't we?
Yes.
I am hoping deep down that was done on purpose. It has to have been.
It was definitely a callback to the earlier episode, even if it wasn't, which makes it, it still makes it great for the fans because Fluttershy was a tree during this episode. All right, so what was your number score, Crescendo?
I am giving it a 4.85 out of 5.
Ugh, you're making it difficult.
It's an amazing episode, but I just don't think it hits that 5. It's very close, though. How about you, Bones?
I'm going to give it a 4.5. 4.5, and there's a very specific reason why it doesn't get a 5, and that's because there was a distinct lack of certain main characters that I feel would have made this episode just all that better because they only showed Twilight, Fluttershy, and Rainbow Dash. There was no Rarity, Applejack, or Pinkie Pie, which I think was kind of a travesty. But at the same time,
Well, I don't think they'd be needed.
despite it being done really well and being executed really well, it was a pretty cut and dry sort of triumph story, like the kind you would have seen in a whole lot of 80s films, where there's a big event or a big competition coming up, and the underdog's not sure they're going to be able to do it. And through a lot of hard work,
And of course, the obligatory training montage.
they managed to succeed. Even if it's not succeeding in the way they originally wanted to, they still managed to pull something off. And this was kind of that way. It had that feeling to it where you knew that Fluttershy by the end of the episode was going to do all right. But of course, it's a children's show. You would have known that anyways. I felt that there were just some really minor, nitpicky sort of things that just kind of took away from it. The lack of the other main 6 characters during this big event that was very important to Rainbow Dash because it could have meant setting a record that basically showed that she can trump a Wonderbolt, as well as being there for emotional support, since you know that Rainbow Dash and Twilight had to have been talking to their other friends about how much Fluttershy's past traumas was affecting her ability to fly in the tornado. And so that's kind of the emotional support that could have come from characters like Pinkie Pie and Rarity and Applejack would have been a nice addition. Really minor addition, sure, but it's enough to kind of bog the episode down just a little bit in my eyes, especially considering that it was a pretty cut and dry episode. Fluttershy is failing, Fluttershy gets some confidence, Fluttershy goes in, Fluttershy saves the day. And so, with that said, I gave it a 4.5.
Well, I think that about wraps it up.
I think it does.
Yeah, I
So,
think it does.
from all of us here at Everfree Radio, I am Brushin Bones.
I'm Crescendo.
Moonlight. Hey.
We have an order here. I go second, you go third.
No. Okay.
Moonlight.
And I'm Moonlight.
And thank you for tuning in. Come back next time.